Historical records can be a valuable asset for exploration at a new site. This specific report on my 300-hectare claim is 126 pages. It has details on which way the glacier went and left the channels intact around the area. It goes into detail on the first and second interglacial channels present in this valley. Written and typed out in the 30s by an engineer from California, this report was made to raise money and funds to open up a large placer mine and take funds from the public for a quick get-rich scheme. The problem with these reports is 90% of it is over-exaggerated. I have already proven this report wrong a few times. Things such as gold grade and mine life at my current site are not even close to being correct. Though these reports can give you a good idea, it's very neat to see all the historical things that happen around here. Evidence of the original cabins that these miners stayed in are still there, but they're starting to decay quickly. The one main map that we'll be using for our exploration is on the hydraulic pit. This map gives us gold grades throughout the channel and includes depth to bedrock. There's a lot of old shafts on site and even an adit that goes into the hillside. I'd like to save that for exploration later on down the road. The 155-foot shaft located at the bottom of the valley we won't go to just yet. So let's head over to the other side of the valley to prove this report right or wrong. Okay, so we're at our first test pit on the new claim. I wanted to start it up high just because I've had a lot of good luck at this elevation. Plus, the bonus is that there's a lot of infrastructure already here to set up a mine site. I've got ponds, there's no trees, we can get in, test, get sluicing, and start making some money. So this old excavation is going to be our first spot. We'll dig a 4 meter by 4 meter hole, get some pay out of it, and run it through the mini trommel. So this stuff right here is actually pay from the bank. It's the exact same stuff at my site located north of us. So what we need to do first is get the pump down to the pond. We'll set the trommel up on the bank here, run some hoses. It's a super easy quick setup for this thing, so let's get at it. Okay, so we have a 3-inch ran reduced down to a 2-inch. Let's go fire this pump up and see if we have our water. We'll level off our sluice box and get our angles right on the trompe. I hope I don't have any troubles with this pump. I can't remember what was wrong with it last year and if I actually fixed it or not, so we'll fire it up. I know there's no foot valve in the pump side, so we have to run it, add water, and then it'll prime. Oh, okay, so we have some water. Spray bars look decent. Sluice could probably use a little bit more water. And then hopper could use a lot more water. That water should be spraying up to here. So we'll go bump up that pump, change that sluice angle a little bit, and run some dirt. So that's full bore right now on the pump. Still not quite enough up there, so a guy could go through and restrict those. That's gonna run this as is though. Little Springer. My bucket is too wide for this, so I'm gonna end up a lot of spillage on here. I don't wanna go and rent a mini excavator when I have a big one. So far it's actually working quite good. You can see I have the tailing chute put back on. There wasn't enough angle on that, So I'll just let it drop into that hole. The hopper angle is actually quite perfect. The slope on the bottom, material actually feeds in very nice. I think if a person were to just run a 3-inch hose up here, those nozzles would be spraying to the backside. So this stuff that I'm running, I think there's actually a layer of glacial till up top. It's super compact, super clay. Like the stuff barely breaks up in that little trommel, but it's actually doing quite well. I'm very surprised. So what I might do is actually take some of this, put it off to the side, get down to the real hard pay and run some of that. But first we'll do a clean out of this tilly stuff just to see what's in there. So this is that glacial till right here. My big trommel couldn't even break that stuff up. It's just rock hard. Yeah, nothing could break that up. So we'll shut down, do a quick little cleanup of the top mat, and then start digging down to the other stuff. So I don't see a single flake of gold in this. Like I say, I'm pretty sure that was that glacial till that caps the channel. Even if that was an ounce to 300 yards, which I normally run, we should be able to see gold in that gold hog matting, and it should be around 0.1 grams. So let's fire this pump back up and run some of the good stuff. Okay, so there's the good stuff now. Like I say, they must have had this in a very straight bank, and this is slough from that glacial till. So we'll get some of this stuff run another 10 yards, shut down, and see if there's any gold in it. That's extremely funny. Just like I said before, those diagrams are way off. Look at that. Bedrock was supposed to be like 140 feet. Bedrock's right there. So I had a little bit of a mix of material. This stuff is the pure bottom red stuff. It's running a lot better. It's a lot loosened up, way less clay. Runs good. This stuff is so much nicer than running that gray stuff. It's so nice and fluffy, sandy. It breaks up in the hopper, comes out clean in the end of the trommel. The hopper fills up, just gradually feeds the material in, good to go. Another downside to running that super clay stuff is when you're feeding with the excavator, a big blob will go plunk, it'll stick in the hopper. It'll eventually work itself through, but it's just a pain in the butt. Sometimes when you're feeding a trommel, whether it's a big one or a small one, you'll see a little spurt of water coming out between the barrel and the hopper. That's due to too much material flowing through the hopper. It fills up the trommel and then it'll come out this way. So when you're overfeeding it, that's what happens. Or also if you have a hopper clog and everything just goes into the trommel at once, the water will want to go that way. Bedrock can be a pain in the ass to run sometimes. You'll see how it's all stacked like that. Lots of times we'll actually build up, clog up. Sometimes you just have to kick it out by hand. It even happens with my big trommel, just bedrock. Okay, so there's the bedrock right there. Not too sure if they ran down to this layer and then gave up, but bedrock is literally like a foot below that red stuff. So it looks like the bedrock is actually striking up that way. So I'm assuming that's gonna all be bedrock up there. So this actually might dip down quite steep as always in this valley. So there might be a lot of pay underneath this section here. So I can actually see some gold in the mats this time. Let's clean this guy out, pan it out, and see what kind of grade we have. So we ran about 5 yards of that. Wasn't a whole lot, but I had to stop just because of bedrock. To go grab the old miner's wrench. These also have another name for me. They're called the crescent hammer. See how there's lots of fines getting caught up in the nugget sluice side? That's just because that screen section for the fine gold side is so short. A guy could go with a longer screen section, but regardless on what happens, it'll get caught on this side. We won't clean this just out yet. That's a lot of work for me. I'm tired and I'm hungry. Got the concentrates right here. We'll head back to camp and we'll pan it out there. I actually didn't bring my pan with me. So that's all the concentrates that we end up with in those gold hog mattings. The majority of it was actually underneath the matting. Not much was actually on top. So I'm switching to the no riffle side. This is how I actually like to remove all the black sands. You can sit there and backwash it and then remove the black sands, but I'm very confident in this way. So this looks super promising. I want to get all the black sands out of it and weigh it up. That's not too bad. That's really not too bad. If there's a gram in there, I'd be happy. 1.52 grams. That's actually a really good test. Okay, so after doing that test last night, it got me a little bit excited, but there's still one thing that you never ever hear any other prospecting or mining channel talk about, and that's called a mine life. The only time you'll ever hear the word mine life is in a big hard rock company. They'll give you two main pieces of information: the gold grade and the mine life. So opening up a placer mine, the mine life is just as important as the gold grade. So take for instance, this hole had a really good gold grade to it, but there was only a foot of paved material there. The cost to bring my equipment over here, build ponds, clear an area, and get set up may not justify the amount of material here. There's not much mine life to begin with right here, but what happens when we go over this way? What happens if that bedrock jets up and the pay disappears? I could be wasting all that time and effort bringing all my equipment here. So what do you have to do? You have to do more test pits. Now, I'll be the first to admit, in the past, I've gone into sites without even doing any testing. It's a huge gamble on my part, and I luckily succeeded throughout the 10 years that I've actually been mining. On this site, I'm still not doing the amount of test pits that a person should be doing. It was a very stupid way of doing it, and if you're looking to get into placer mining, don't do it that way. You have the potential of losing thousands of dollars, but if you like gambling and pulling the slot machine, go right at it. So judging from the reports and stuff I've seen at the site so far, this has the potential for a good mine life. I have no other options right now, so I'll keep on testing and hope for the best. I filled this pit in last night just because we are required to fill in our test pits overnight so no animals will get stuck in there. But what we have to do is, I know we ran some of that red stuff, so now we actually have to do a good test of this gray colored material. According to those maps, there was a lot more of the gray or green material than the red stuff. I think it will be worth it to just run this stuff just to see if there is any gold in it. This is the gray greeny colored stuff. So let's test that out also. Changed up a bunch of spray nozzles in this thing this morning. What it did is just made it cut, pinched it so there's more pressure and less volume. Also did it in the screen section for the fine gold, and actually opened up the nugget side just because I needed more water. Running this material works really good when it's dry. When it's moist, it clumps together and it just flops down into the hopper. Having it dry, you can have a lot better feed rate. River gravels, this would work really well. I sure can put a lot more yardage to this thing when it's dry instead of all that clumpy crap. Digging into this stuff, it actually looks like we're getting into some tailings this way. That rock looks a little bit washed, a little bit too classified. So we'll clean this up, shut down, and see what we got. Well, there is actually some gold in that stuff. I'm very surprised. I thought it was either tailings or just slough that they piled there. So yeah, that was 4 bucket loads, or probably about 3 yards. That would actually be worth sluicing. So on to the next test hole. So I did a quick cut into this bank. I'm not going to actually run this stuff. I just wanted to see what is virgin and what isn't. You can see a blue gray layer down there. That's actually buried organics, most likely when they had the face cut straight and all that organics sloughed in, and that's just decomposing. See, lots of sticks inside of there. That stuff would be gross to run. We have this hole reclaimed now. Everything's contoured. Some brushes put back on. There was no topsoil here to begin with, so what I'll do is I'll come back in and put some seed on it and let it grow. So I did 2 more tests. This was actually tailings from a tailings pile. Look at that. There's actually a decent amount of gold in there. Some actually bigger stuff. So they're obviously blowing that stuff out. I don't know how. That's pretty big gold. That was literally from a 1 yard bucket ran through that test trommel. So I'd actually even run those tailings. And this test was from that gray mucky stuff. I won't weigh this stuff up either, but that stuff is worth mining for sure. So I think I'm done testing close to that bank now. We have an idea on what's going on. So now we'll move to the south side of those ponds, dig a hole, see if there's any pay there. That area is nice and flat, so we'd be able to set up the trommel no problem. And it'll also be a perfect site to set up the big trommel later on when we start mining it. So this is a bucket of the post-glacial gravels that are around here. I've never had luck with it, but we'll try running it. Neighbor upstream does have luck with it, but I've never had luck at the other site. I do know really rich spots in the Caribou that actually contain large amounts of gold in the post-glacial gravels. Normally the richest gravels around the Caribou are in pre-glacial or tertiary channels. And the reason why they're so rich is because they had a long time to concentrate the gold. There was no trees, no topsoils. This area was just completely gravels and bedrock. The gravels that I mine in this valley are interglacial gravels. So that means that as the glacier came through, it took those tertiary channels laying at the bottom of the valleys, squished them up the sides of the valleys, and made lateral moraines along the sides of the mountain. Now there are still remnants of these pre-glacial channels in this valley. My neighbor Roland has a spot that has not been touched by the glacier. That's why it's so rich. Prospecting these types of interglacial channels and lateral moraines can be a little bit tricky sometimes. You'll end up with a bedrock high where that glacier has shaved everything off, and then these large voids are filled. So this current site is at the exact same elevation as my other site. The top of the lateral moraine is the exact same elevation also. Okay, that post-glacial material is all ran. Check out these tailings, they're actually really clean. They're not clay like the other type of material. These post-glacial gravels are very local. They're very square. They're not well rounded or anything like that. There is the odd few rounded rock in there. Not a whole lot of rounded quartz. There's one piece there, but normally there's a lot more. So let's clean these mats out and see if there's any gold in it. You can actually see a couple pieces right there, so who knows? I'm not a salesman or anything on gold hog matting, but I do have to say for prospecting with this little mini trommel, it's a cat's ass. You end up with like virtually no material to pan out at the end of the day. Super quick to clean out. So this will actually be my last test on this site. I'm happy with it. There is gold up here. You know, a person will hit some good spots and you also hit some bad spots. So I put in my multi-year area-based approval this morning. So once they approve that, we can start moving some equipment in, get set up and start sluicing. Okay, check this out. This is unreal. I'm actually super surprised. Look at that. There's actually a picker in there, or actually two pickers. That's actually really good material. Oh, there's another little picker there too. That thing's got some thickness to it. Ha! That is so cool. I'm actually going to weigh this up. I just want to get an exact number on that. So I'm not entirely sure if the silver stuff here is actually mercury covered gold. I really hope I don't run into mercury covered gold on this site. I hate dealing with it. I really don't like disturbing it in nature. If it sits there, it's fine, but as soon as you start disturbing it, that's when the toxins get released. .4 grams. That is literally from one excavator bucket. That is super rich material. And then last up on the list, I actually want to pan out the top part of this nugget sluice just because there is a lot of fines in there. Let's see if there's any gold in it. So the sad thing about that test, even though it was really good, is when I just sent in my multi-year area-based permit update, I did not put that spot in there. So it'll have to be a spot that we can mine later on. One of the reasons why I didn't put that in is because it is on the lower bench from these ponds. I don't want to have to build ponds down there just yet. Sometimes I find having patience in gold mining will actually pay off. If you're in such a rush to get stuff done, shit gets fucked up. Pardon my language. I think that's the first time I was swearing on this channel, but it's very true. I never used to have patience when I was younger, and for some reason gold mining actually taught me patience. I'd always get into a site, I'd want to set up, get sluicing, but stuff gets broken, people can get hurt, so it's not worth it. My 4-foot trommel has 7 feet in length of screen, and then another 4 feet of 1 inch for the nugget side. I do still find fine gold in the nugget side, but it's probably less than 1% of my total intake in the year. So what happens with a trommel is when you move more yardage, you end up with too much material for those spray jets to spray off the rocks and go through the screen. So more yardage does not necessarily mean more gold. Okay, so there's a very small amount of fine gold in the nugget side. Not too worried about it, but at least I'm catching it. So from all of our testing together, it produced 2.56 grams. That is really, really good material up there. There is some lower grade stuff, but there is some higher grade, so it all averages out. So overall, testing the little mini trommel out worked out really well. There's always tweaks to be made, and it's a lot harder when you're out in the bush. Sometimes it's just best to haul the thing back to the shop and go from there. Mass amounts of tailings blanket the hillsides. It makes you wonder how much gold they actually pulled out of here. So overall, our testing at this site equaled out to 0.33 grams a yard. That equals 1 ounce to 100 yards. This site could possibly be some of the richest ground I've ever mined. The map showing all the interglacial channels in the report seemed to be fairly accurate. My first site was located on the first interglacial channel and it wasn't as rich. Now we'll be dipping into the second interglacial channel where it has a lot of old workings. The majority of the values on the hydraulic map seem to be somewhat accurate, but bedrock depth is not even close. The values on the map are from 1930. If you look close, gold was only $30 an ounce. The remainder of the test pits and shafts that they have listed here, we haven't even got to yet. Some of those values are fairly high and I'm looking forward to actually digging near them. As for the 55-foot deep shaft, we'll have to see later on in the year. It's located at the bottom of the valley where there's lots of groundwater. Groundwater can be a pain in the ass to be mining around. Values at the bottom show $1 to $6 per cubic yard. That would equate from 1 gram to almost 1/4 ounce per yard. You never know if those values will be accurate, but it's worth testing it out. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a thumbs up and wish me luck in the comments below. I hope to see you on the next one.